Guys, welcome to the Limitless One podcast. I have my friend and my doctor, Dr. Adeel Khan, here today. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, no problem.
And Dr. Adeel Khan is obviously a lot more than just a doctor. He's a weightlifter, a bodybuilder, an entrepreneur, but he specializes in regenerative medicine and some muscle structure, musculoskeletal pain, regenerative pain medicine. And also you kind of are leading the way, you and the team that you have at the Institute of Human Mechanics, with PRP and kind of debunking some of the stuff that's going on with stem cell injection and kind of bringing light to that whole world. You've been my doctor now for 5 years, and you've helped me with a great deal with my health. I've lost about 50 pounds of muscle since I started with you, which we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And I can't thank you enough because I feel a lot healthier. I feel a lot better. And I'm just grateful to have someone like you in my life, especially from where I was coming from out of bodybuilding. So thank you for being here and thank you for everything you've done for me.
Yeah, no, happy to be here. And hopefully we can share some of that valuable insight that I've learned over the years with your audience.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about everything that I went through to get where I'm at. But I'd like to start, let's talk about what it is that you kind of do on a daily basis and what the Human Institute of Mechanics do, like what you do as a doctor, what you specialize in.
Yeah, so my specialty, as you said, is essentially regenerative medicine, which means using your own body's cells to heal.
Okay.
So this is a similar concept as functional medicine, which has gained traction in the last few years, which is really the concept where your body has what it needs to heal, but you have to give the right signals or the right tools to do it. So what are those signals? And that's what we're learning now. And so there's different ways to send those signals to the tissue for it to heal.
Okay.
Whether that's through nutrition, through exercise, through physio, or through injections. And so what those injections are, now we're learning that they can be tailored to send certain signals on what we're trying to target.
Okay.
So it's not like we're just going to inject something and hope it works. We actually know the mechanistic pathways that it affects so that it can regenerate or reduce inflammation or whatever we're trying to achieve.
So really just kind of helping the body regenerate itself, right? Yeah. And I think that there's a couple topics I want to jump into on that. One, I've seen you post multiple times about like the Medicare system within Canada, and I feel like with maybe not just Canada, maybe it's just Western society in general, we got really good at emergency medicine. It seems like when it comes to heart health, when it comes to whatever, cut it out.
We're the best at acute medicine, for
right?
Hands down. Chronic.
Right. So where do you feel like we're making headway with what it is you're doing? Like you're kind of, from what I know, the Human Institute of Mechanics, yourself and the other doctors there are kind of leading the pathway, not just in Canada. Like you guys are some of the leading in the world, right? Like
I mean, Dr. Gallia is the world authority on platelet-rich plasma injections.
Yeah.
He did it in 1996 for Don and Billy, and he's the first one in the world to do it.
Yeah.
So he actually pioneered that.
Yeah.
And then, so he's the one who trained me, and he's the one who started the institute.
Yeah.
And so, we have people around the world who fly in to see us, not only because of our protocols, but also because we've pushed the envelope in terms of developing new types of plasma injections.
Okay.
So we're not just doing the same thing that other clinics are doing. We continue to innovate.
Okay. So what's the difference between PRP and stem cell?
Yeah, so
people kind of almost like
I know, yeah,
right?
and that's the funny part is they're actually very similar in the sense that what they do, the way they work. So platelet-rich plasma is where we take your blood, we spin it, and we concentrate the platelets.
Okay.
And so there's different ways to concentrate the platelets, and there's different ways to modify the platelets depending on what we're trying to achieve.
Okay.
So the standard one is what's called like a slightly concentrated PRP, which is like, between 2 to 4x increase in baseline platelet concentration. And when you increase the platelet concentration, essentially you have more growth factors that get secreted when you inject it back into the tissue. Okay. And those growth factors there's also other signals that they send to your body's own stem cells to start regenerating and healing. Because if you think about it, if I inject a plasma into your tear, it doesn't stay there for like weeks or months. It actually only stays there for maybe a couple days. But what it does is send signals to your own body to start regenerating and healing and reducing inflammation.
Okay.
And depending on the type of composition of the platelets, it's going to modify it. So for example, there's been studies done in people who are like 8 years old versus 20-year-old. Their PRP is completely different because the 8-year-old doesn't have as many growth factors as a 20-year-old.
Yes.
So that's why there's so much variability, and that's why you might hear PRP doesn't work.
Yeah. And
the reason for that is because there's no standardization.
Okay.
And so what we've done is we've created a second generation plasma called cyto-rich. And so the main difference is that we're actually standardizing this, what's called the cytokine count and the platelet count.
Yep.
So we know exactly what we're injecting every time. And we're the only clinic in Canada that actually measures our platelet. There's only 3 clinics in North America that actually measure their platelets.
Okay.
Everyone else is just kind of guessing or getting drug manufacturers who make their own centrifuges and just using it and hoping it works. So there's very little expertise in this area, and it's poorly regulated. So there's just a lot of people doing it improperly.
Yeah.
But what we're doing, we're trying to standardize it so we know exactly what we're trying to achieve.
Okay.
The other big difference between the cyto-rich is that it targets what's called IL-1, which is a interleukin-1 pro-inflammatory cytokine.
Yeah.
So essentially these target inflammation and these cause inflammation and pain. We know that's a huge mediator for arthritis, chronic back pain, a lot of different conditions. And then there's also something called matrix malloproteinases. It's a long word, just basically another inflammatory cytokines. So just think of these as little messengers that are causing inflammation and are causing degradation of the joint or of tendons or cartilage. And so what we're doing is we're essentially putting out those inflammatory markers with the cyto-rich injection. And what stem cells do, stem cells have a very similar anti-inflammatory effect and cell signaling effect. Now the cyto-rich is just as potent as many of the stem cells, if not more potent, in terms of like, if you take your fat or if you take your bone marrow and you inject it, you're getting stem cells, but what you're really getting are signaling cells that reduce inflammation. And so there's actually a paper written a couple of years ago where they're saying, okay, let's not call it stem cells, let's call it medicinal signaling cells. And this was the guy, his name's Dr. Arnold Kaplan. He's actually he pioneered the word stem cells in 1992 from Case Western. And so he said, we need to stop calling it stem cells. This was a paper published in Nature. And so he was just saying we should call them medicinal signaling cells. That's the most appropriate term. So when you see this advertisement saying, oh, I'm getting a stem cell injection. No, you're not getting a stem cell injection. In North America, you are not getting a stem cell injection. It's not possible. The only way to get stem cell injection is to go to Europe or Mexico or somewhere where they culture the cells for 2 weeks and grow them to a viable number where you actually have enough stem cells or progenitor cells that differentiate into tissue. That's true stem cells, and you're not allowed to do that in North America. You're not allowed to culture cells. So,
and why is it that we're not allowed to do that? Is it just because it's hard to measure, it's hard safety, or is it the things what we have to do to get the cult? Like,
there's regulatory issues, and there's also there's probably safety issues as well. We don't fully understand exactly how they work yet, and so we need to study it more before we can say, okay, this is the exact dose you need, and this is what it's going to do. So that's why it hasn't been approved yet. So there's definitely ways to go with the stem cell injections, but PRP has been around for 25 years, and we know exactly how it works. And especially with the new ones. So there's a lot more safety data with that. So for me, it doesn't make sense to use stem cells when, especially with the second generation PRP, you can achieve the same thing. Unless you're trying to use, the only time I use stem cells or like for example, we take your fat sometimes is as a graft. Because we can use it as a scaffold for large tears, and it can hold the PRP in place. So that, and if you're using a scaffold, then you can regenerate tissue because it holds it in place, right? So in the States, for example, they're doing 3D bioprinters. So they print a scaffold using a hydrogel scaffold, and then they seed it with like the stem cells or PRP to actually, and then it'll regrow tissue. But if you're just injecting stem cells or PRP without a scaffold, you're not going to regrow like a new joint or something, right?
You're not. Well, the most amazing part about PRP or that is that the body's regenerating itself. Because you're giving it the properties to bring. Because so let's go back to inflammation. Because a lot of people think like people take Advil, they take ibuprofen, they take whatever to try to knock their inflammation down. I had a problem last year where I had inflammation in my heart, which was pericarditis. They thought it was a virus of some sort that caused it. I had to take like strong anti-inflammatories to knock it down. So inflammation, a lot of people think that it's really, really bad, but you do need some level of inflammation for recovery of some sort, right?
Like acute inflammation is not the problem. It's chronic low-grade inflammation.
Chronic low-grade
that
inflammation.
Causes degradation. And
whether that's from your diet or whatever, chronic inflammation. So PRP and stem cell kind of do the same thing. It's just obviously one's kind of, maybe it's not legal in Canada, but it's not regulated either, kind of in a lot of those other countries. It could probably be super unsafe depending on how they're culturing them, where they inject them, and what it's doing. And PRP is kind of doing this. So it's not just lowering inflammation. So what is the process of that? Like you inject it, the inflammation goes down, the signals come in. Is it blood flow? Like is it oxygen blood flow?
So the way the cyto-rich one works, it works through what are called monocytes. So monocytes are part of your regular immune system, and they're immunomodulatory. So we know now the way PRP and even stem cells work is they modulate your immune system. And depending on how you modulate it, it can increase or decrease inflammation. And so that's the big problem with PRP is that if you use the wrong type of PRP, and like 95% of people are using the wrong type of PRP, they're actually triggering more inflammation. Because most of them use what's called a harvest kit or Angel, because those are the two biggest companies that make them. And those are pro-inflammatory because they're red and they have more growth factors, but they also have more cells and debris that cause inflammation in joints. And so the cyto-rich is actually acellular. So there's no cells. So it's complete. So it's no debris and there's no pro-inflammatory factors in there.
And this would be made off-site, and then they're just using it. Like they're not actually spinning it or making.
They take it and they spin it, but they're just using a generic centrifuge. Like just one that it's like you can buy from any local rep. And so it's just like family doctors when they get drug reps who come in. There's drug reps or these big companies, and they've just done a good job marketing, but there's not actually good science behind that.
Do you think that, so like who is the ideal client that would get the most benefit? Is it someone that has like a rotator cuff tear, ACL tear?
Osteoarthritis and chronic tears by far the two most things that works the best for, and the most common things we do.
Because I had a conversation with my manager at Athletic Culture the other day. He's looking at getting a knee replacement. He's missing some cartilage and stuff, and it's I can't remember if it's the inside or the outside of his knees that he's having problems with. He's tried braces and different things, and I said, I'm going to get you a referral just to go meet with Dr. Khan and at least take a look at it before you go and get a knee replacement, right? So would you say that some people, like, do you think there's a big chance a lot of people, is there some cases it's not going to help? Like you're too far gone,
for
right?
sure, yeah. But there are cases, I've had many patients cancel their hip replacements or knee replacements because we've been able to treat them with the new injections and new techniques.
Yeah.
So for example, I'm doing this new procedure. I was the first one in Canada to do it, where it's intraosseous plasma injection.
Yeah.
So it's actually where we drill into what's called a subchondral bone. Because with advanced arthritis, it's not just the cartilage that thins out, it's the bone underneath that gets inflamed and damaged.
Oh, wow.
And so bone edema, as it's called, is chronic inflammation of the bone underneath the cartilage.
Oh, wow.
And so that bone edema is actually quite painful, and it's been linked to increased pain more so than joint narrowing in osteoarthritis.
Yeah.
So when we treated the bone edema with intraosseous injection, we're actually drilling directly into the bone.
Yeah.
So you're asleep for it, so it's not.
Yeah. Okay.
You don't want to do it. So people always get scared, like, oh my god.
Well, I seen you drilling the other day into the guy's femur, and you're like, are you doing okay? I was like, is that guy awake?
It's conscious sedation. He was fine. Barely felt a thing, but but honestly, like I had this lady, she was in her 70s. And her hip replacement was a year and a half out because of the wait times, because of COVID and everything.
Yeah.
So she was like, what do I do? And I was like, well, we can try this new procedure I'm doing.
Yeah.
And her pain is like 70-80%. She's so happy. She can walk now. She was able to go enjoy her vacation. You know, and and that injection usually lasts 2 to 3 years. So she may just do it again. And she's like, I don't want to do a hip replacement now. I don't need it.
Yeah.
So, you know, if there's alternatives, but again, like there's very little education on it. And there's also... you know, most of my referrals are from people like you, because not from other family doctors, because they have no concept or training about this stuff.
Well, like I had a family doctor, like a GP before, and the first time, that was before that I had got lucky enough to meet you, and I went in, and I'm somewhat educated on nutrition and medicine and muscle, and like I'm just obsessed with micronutrients and everything, a bit of a geek on that. And I would go in and I would start talking about what I thought was wrong, talking about iodine, talking about all these different things. And I remember the first time I started talking about cholesterol and what I wanted to do with testing, he kind of looked at me like I had 3 heads, like, how do you even know this, right? And as I spoke to him about nutrition, I realized I was speaking to a wall.
Yeah, exactly.
Like he wasn't really educated. They know, like, they do so little talk on nutrition and on regenerative medicine. And I think that's like something that's missing so largely in the Medicare system, is like it's so quick, like diabetes, heart disease, all this stuff. Like I feel like we're missing the point from just getting our feet in the dirt, getting some sun on our body, eating a little bit more whole foods, moving a little bit more, and calming down our mind and getting away from the technology.
Well, all those things you mentioned, what they do is they modify the cellular signals. So they actually, it's all about cellular signaling and cellular pathways. And so there's 7 or 8 key pathways that are the hallmarks of aging. And so some of them are like cellular senescence, some of them are proteostasis. So these are all just different things that go wrong as you age. And those things that you mentioned are what modify those pathways and prevent them from accelerating aging and causing chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation is one of the pathways too. So it's funny because none of that was taught in med school. And I only went to, I only graduated 6 years ago, 5 years ago. So it's not like I'm that far removed from it. I don't think the curriculum's been updated enough at all. And so, and there's actually been research on this too. What you learn in med school gets outdated within 5 years. But the funny part is the people who teach the curriculum aren't themselves experts in any of this stuff. So, and that's why I'm involved at U of T and McMaster. I'm a professor there, and I'm trying to, you know, get more of this. And I have so many students coming to come work with me all the time now because they're so interested in this stuff. And they understand, like, it doesn't take a genius to realize that it's a fragmented system for chronic health. Right? For chronic pain, for chronic, you know, diabetes, high blood, all that stuff, right?
Well, the system,
genius to realize, like, you know, there's so many gaps.
Well, I think it was a natural progression with, obviously, money has a lot to do with it, and pharmaceutical companies have a lot to do with it. But just in general, if you go back 100 years ago, like, we weren't worried about getting sun on our bodies and about sugar and about food. It was more like, get these antibiotics into this person, or whatever the problem was. If you were having a heart problem or whatever it was like that's what the system was built on, right? And I just think that they become so obsessed on like treating the actual, like, without the symptom, without figuring out what is causing the problem. And I think that so many people, if we just meditated a little bit more, ate a little bit better, and got our feet on the ground, got in the ocean, and got under the sunlight, and actually did a blood panel and understood what our cholesterol and what our vitamin D and all these things look like, we could make, well, I think that within a decade you could probably change the Medicare system like that. If you have people like yourself, which you are, championing it forward, getting out and having a voice. And I think people know there's something wrong, but like there's not a lot of people out there like doing what you're doing, you know, voicing that and educating themselves outside. Like so many people graduate and then they just go to work and collect a paycheck, and they're not trying to expand their knowledge or expand what they teach, right?
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why, when you mentioned earlier, entrepreneur, I have a startup business.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah, that's cool. Very cool.
Yeah, exactly. So our startup business is called Exalt, X-A-L-T, but the idea behind it is exactly what you said. It's basically getting people to do all those things in a way that's sustainable.
Okay.
Because everyone knows, like, people aren't dumb. Like, people know you should move more, they should, eat more vegetables, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But it's the nuanced stuff behind that, and it's also keeping on track on that.
Yeah.
And behavior change is the biggest issue. And so our model is, 15-minute sessions. So there's short virtual training sessions, and we're teaching our trainers on behavior change on top of all the other curriculum that we've designed.
Okay.
So they actually know how to help with goal setting and mindset and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I work professionally in cognitive behavioral therapy and weight loss before I decided to specialize in this area.
Yeah.
And so that's where I learned, all this therapy essentially on how to change people's relationship with food.
Yeah.
Because most people have a healthy, poor relationship with food and poor relationship with their body.
Yes.
Right? They don't know, they do emotional eating. There's all these other things.
Course,
and so it's not as easy as just say, oh, stop eating that. Like, oh, you should know better. It's like telling someone who's depressed to stop being depressed.
Yeah, I know.
Like, it doesn't make sense.
No,
there's a rewiring of the brain, and there's
100%.
all these things you have to do.
Yeah.
And so we're teaching our trainers education on that, and we've also built a dashboard that's going to help augment that from using AI.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty cool opportunity, and it's a scalable technology. So we're pretty excited to scale it to North America and then hopefully around the world.
So is it live now, or
it just launched?
It just launched.
Yeah. So we're doing our first certification course in December. So any personal trainers who are interested in wanting to take it, I think there's still a few spots left, and for them we have our own internal certification that they can take.
Very cool.
To standardize it, right?
Okay.
And this curriculum has been developed by world experts in different areas. So like Ben Pekulski, he's a big name.
Yeah.
So he helped with the curriculum.
Okay.
And then we have someone like Chris, who's a big professor, and then Andy O'Brien, who's like Sidney Crosby's trainer. We also got Steph Curry's trainer. So we got really good big team. Yeah, a good team.
So take me through the customer experience. I find out about it on Instagram, Google, whatever. I come in. Is it an app I'm downloading?
Yeah, it's a dash. It's kind of like TrainerRise.
Yes.
So that's a dashboard component, but there's more to it because you actually have a coach. You actually get a coach in each session, a trainer who sees you 15 minutes, whether that's twice a week or once a week, to keep you accountable.
Yeah.
And so the whole experience is every time the trainer is going to ask you about like your mood, your nutrition, your stress, your sleep, all that stuff. So we're inputting all that data onto a dashboard and keeping track of it over time.
Okay.
So it's going to be a health dashboard in a sense as well. And then eventually over time, we're going to have all this data that we can figure out hopefully help better predict health outcomes.
Okay.
So that's the idea behind it.
So I'd be getting nutritional service, training service.
And then we also have, in the background of all that, we have AI camera technology for mobility assessments.
Okay, very cool.
Which we're going to develop over time, but we're just using like the FMS, but we're going to scale it by teaching the AI how to better screen mobility. Using virtual assessments.
So is this on the App Store now? You're saying it's on the App?
It's online.
It's online.
Yeah.
So
the app is still being developed, but you can read it online. It's on the website right now.
You can register. And what's it again?
Exalt.
Exalt. Okay. How do you spell it?
X-A-L-T.
X-A-L-T. Cool. Okay. So maybe somebody will check that out.
Yeah, they want to check it out.
It's really, really cool because we need more stuff for people. Let's go back to what you said about, there's so much information. Like I teach you could learn how to build an airplane online if you wanted to, right? A rocket launch or whatever. You can definitely learn how to lose weight if you wanted to. And I don't think the information's the problem. Like so many people, well, again, maybe too much information, maybe that's the problem because which we're going to jump into what I do with my diet and a bit about what you do with yours. And you introduced me to a book by Rob Wolf, Wired to Eat, which just makes sense when you really read it. It's like that's
my favorite.
Yeah,
that's why I recommended it to you.
100%. It's such a good book and it's really simplified, right? But you got should I do vegan, vegetarian? Should I do flexible dieting and if it fits your macros, or should I do keto or like the carnivore diet or just a balanced and the Mediterranean diet? And I think that's where people get lost is because you have so many people that have a great body telling this is what you have to do. But the reality of it is there's so many different ways to do it. And at the end of the day, as long as you're getting the micronutrients and you're losing the weight you want to and your inflammation's going down.
That's why I really dislike those guys. Just like all those doctors, the carnivore guy, Jason Fung, who promotes keto, and Mark Hyde. They're all. Look at their physiques, first of all. None of them are, no offense. None of them, I don't think any of them are particularly strong. None of them look particularly good. But beyond that, they're trying to sell something to everyone. They're trying to sell their own books. They're trying to sell their own type of diet.
That's how you sell.
They're so biased.
You got to divide people, right?
They're not objective. The only objective person I know in the nutrition field, the most objective is Alan Aragon. He's a really well-known guy in the nutrition field, and he just puts out a monthly research review in terms of nutrition, fitness, and all the recent evidence on it. And he's he's not trying to sell anything, just purely objective. And that's where I get all my nutrition information from because lays out the research and doesn't like, say this is better than this. He kind of says it's very individual, and for certain people this may work better, and and that's where the science is at right now.
100%.
You can't just say like, oh, carnivore for everyone.
But there is like that. I think that everything, like a lot of studies. I used to train the head surgeon from RVH in the cancer palliative unit, and I remember I had an article one time, and it was about brown spots on bananas. Eating these bananas can decrease certain types of cancer by whatever. It didn't say a certain percentage, and I showed it to him, and he said, you have to realize that there's studies that will be done. He said, first of all, people doing studies, they have to get funding, so they have to find something, right? So they're always going to find something. And he said it doesn't say in there that could have been 0.7% of a difference on one type of blood cancer or something, that there was an increase in potential, whatever it was. And, and I think that's the same thing with a keto diet or a carnivore diet. There's probably some principles where it's like, oh, like you look at vegetables, we know there are toxins in certain vegetables, right? There's a lot of people don't realize that there's a lot more vegetables out there that make you sick than there is animal proteins that will make you sick.
A lot of them are nutrient depleted because the soil is...
Because the soil, especially iodine and things like that, right? Because we're not, unless you're growing it close to the ocean, but they're over the agriculture, you're just growing so much stuff. But I think that's what it is there's a certain diet that might have a certain principle for a certain disease, right? Whether it was like Alzheimer's or eczema or whatever it may be, and then people take it and run with it, right?
Yeah.
And then it gets so skewed that people like, of course, if you're insulin resistant and you do the keto diet, you do carnivore, you're gonna immediately start to see some changes, but that doesn't mean you have to do that for life.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So like, let's talk. I think what people are gonna get the most, what I've learned from you is let's go a little bit deeper into nutrition and then about training, because I think there's a misconception around what is good for exercise and for staying young. You're an expert in that, and I think that's what all of us are trying to achieve. That's what I want to achieve. I'm 37 now. When I came to you, I was at the end of my bodybuilding career, and all that mattered at that point, I thought I was going to turn pro. I know I've learned that my genetics probably weren't going to get me there, but no matter how hard I tried or what I was doing. But I think that, there's a misconception on exercise and on weightlifting itself, right? And what we need to do to stay healthy and to live to 100, hopefully, or whatever. So let's go back into nutrition on what Wired to Eat talks about and a little bit about what we found out about mine. So let's talk about what you do, because you obviously maintain your natural, you kind of do bodybuilding year round, you do weightlifting, and you champion that very well, and you're very vocal about weightlifting versus just doing cardiovascular or just stretching or just doing yoga. So what does your diet look like? What do you do?
So depends how stressed I am.
Well,
that's the hardest part, right? I think a lot of doctors and a lot of people who are high, performers or whatever, so it's like, how do you stay on track? And so the way I simplify for myself that I found works is I do intermittent fasting. Not necessarily for the health benefits, because there are, we could go through them, but it's also because for my schedule and it's because of the way my lifestyle. I mean, it's just easier for me, and plus I don't like eating breakfast. So I generally don't eat breakfast, and sometimes like on non-training days I may have like a shake with leucine or some sort of branched-chain amino acids just to help prevent muscle breakdown. Because when you're fasting, that's the one thing. So there was actually this interesting study where they had people doing intermittent fasting, and they lost like an X amount of weight, but then they also lost a bunch of muscle. And so you're fasting and you're losing muscle, and exactly, what's the point? Muscle is actually way more protective for your body. I would say if you're losing muscle, that's definitely way worse than gaining some fat. So the trade-off isn't worth it. So you need to really balance between, if you're doing intermittent fasting, that's the one thing I always caution people about, is to be careful about losing muscle. And that's where strength training comes in, obviously. So generally speaking, for lunch, I'll try to have a bit more carbs, so to kind of fuel my workout, because I always do high intensity weight resistance training. So for me, it's not going to work. I know some people can do keto and they're fat adapted, but I never found that work for me personally. So usually I'll have quinoa and some chicken. And then some sort of fermented vegetable. So I usually do sauerkraut.
Perfect. I do it daily too.
The reason being, just again, the gut microbiome, and again, we know that's one of the cellular pathways that gets gut dysbiosis. That's a hallmark of aging and causes lots of issues. And so keeping your gut as healthy as possible, which fasting can do, and also having fermented food is an easy way to do that. And then, in my opinion, that's much better than taking a probiotic too, because you just get way more, nutrient stuff.
And it just has to be a non-preservative type sauerkraut, right?
Exactly.
Like Bubba's, or I think is a good one. Those ones.
Exactly. And then, generally speaking, I'll before my workout, depending on how tired I am, I'll have either a non-stim or stim pre-workout. So I use the HD ones just because I know they have good quality ingredients and stuff.
It's amazing.
And so the non-stim one is just citrulline malate, which is the main ingredient, but the stim one has caffeine. So sometimes I'll have that if I'm tired. And then I don't usually I find that my food for my lunch usually can sustain me, but if it's been more than 4 hours, there's been some research suggesting your body can be a little bit more catabolic after that amount. So then if it's been more than 4 hours, then I might have something like an intra workout or like a carb, like, I don't know if you've seen that carb sheet product. It's just carbohydrates, basically just some carbohydrates before your workout.
It's got coconut oil.
Yeah, exactly. Just to help me during my workout, especially if I'm training legs or something heavier and whatever.
Yeah.
And then post-workout, which is usually I only have 2 meals a day really. And then that's what I'll have, like purple sweet potato and some sort of like protein, like so either like steak, fish, or sometimes just chicken.
Yeah.
So I eat a very it's almost like bodybuilding diet, but so it's pretty clean.
Yeah.
And then, but you're probably wondering where about all my vegetables and stuff. So I make a big smoothie.
Okay.
And that's where I put a lot of my nutrient dense stuff. So I put like broccoli sprouts. We grow our own kale. So I put our own kale. Yeah. Because the problem with kale and any green leafy vegetables is when you pick them and you ship them to the store, there's something called the respiratory rate of the vegetable, and it loses nutrients from the time it's picked.
It's like 50% in 24 hours.
Exactly. So from the time it was picked, it loses that nutrients. So people don't realize they could eat so much. They could eat apples, veggies, all this, but people don't realize these foods are actually depleted of nutrients compared to where they were 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Which is part of the reason why I take a multivitamin too. Because unless you're eating like organ meat and I just don't like organ meat, but if I liked it or if you can handle it, I think organ meat's great.
Well, there's a company I buy. I'll get you some stuff and send it to you. So I get it off a grass-fed, grass-finished farm that's about an hour west of here. Yeah. And they raise all their own pigs, their own bison, their own elk, and their own cows. And they have a ground beef that's 80% sirloin and 20% spleen, liver, and heart. Oh. And it tastes. You put it I'll do a lettuce burger with it, man, and it's insane. Like it's so good. And
I'm gonna hit you up for that.
Yeah, I'll get you some. I'll send you some. Yeah, they'd be happy to send it to you.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'd love to try it.
Yeah, and it's super good.
I get grass fed from this farmer up in Alton Hills or somewhere for grass fed steak.
Yeah.
But organ would be great, because it has so many. It's so nutrient dense.
It's everything.
And the problem is with veggies, it's just not unless you're growing your own kale like we are, and broccoli sprouts and stuff like that. It's just hard to get that stuff.
100%.
But I love broccoli sprouts because they anti-cancerous properties.
Is there okay?
Yeah, because one serving of broccoli sprouts is like eating like 50. I think it was 50 servings of like actual broccoli.
Okay, so I didn't know that.
It was so much more nutrient dense. It's because of sulforaphane, which is an anti-cancerous property. So that's why I always try to get that once a day into my diet.
Very cool.
Because of the anti-cancerous properties. So there's certain nutrients you want to try again every day, right? And try to eat a variety of colors. Yeah. So that's why I eat purple sweet potato, if you heard what I said. But then not orange because of just the nutrient density of that. Yeah. And then also in my smoothie, I usually put ginger and turmeric as well. Just like a tiny bit. It doesn't over flavor it. And then some, usually I put like berries, some sort of antioxidant in there too. Like
blueberry, blackberries.
Blackberries, and stuff like that.
And so most of the carbohydrates you're taking in are a complex carbohydrate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I get my fiber that way and stuff. And then if I'm right now I'm dieting, so that's why I didn't mention, but if I'm bulking, then I'll do usually like steel cut oats as well. Yeah. And then have that too. Yeah. Yeah. And do you have any simple carbs just on today's your high carb day? Yes.
Right? Which it's we're gonna do arms today too, so maybe
so like before I came here I had I think I had a bubble tea.
Yeah, nice. Is that your go-to like kind of cheat kind of thing?
Yeah, I love it's a delicious drink.
Yeah, and to get in, so you do like 500 grams of carbs on a day like today? Yeah. So will you do a little bit of white rice, sushi or something?
Exactly, I'm gonna have sushi,
Because if you do 500 grams of carbs from like oatmeal and brown rice, you're gonna be bloated, right? Yeah, it's deadly,
I usually do sushi,
Yeah, so that so you do 2 meals a day. Are you measuring your food at all at this point? You still
I don't still have to measure it because I measured it for like a decade, like during med school and all that stuff.
Yeah, and your body weight's probably been this, like you're not like you're jumping 10 pounds of muscle, right?
Exactly, yeah. So when you're natural, obviously you can't gain that much. So but in med school, I used to weigh my food every single day. All my med students, fans were like, "What the heck are you doing?"
Yeah.
No one understood why.
Yeah.
But it paid off because now I can eyeball everything.
Yeah.
So I have a really good calorie counter in my head, basically. And
that's what I do too.
Yeah. And then I weigh myself every couple of weeks or whatever to gauge, or I can tell. Honestly, at this point, I can tell by the mirror. Yeah. I can tell whether or not I'm heading in the right direction. Or I need to cut back a bit more. Yeah. So that's generally what I do in terms of my nutrition. Yeah. And then I find that's like that way I get a pretty nutrient dense diet, and minimally processed foods. I think those are the big fundamental principles. Yeah. People forget like just so much diet information out there, but just focus on the principles. Yeah. Eat real food.
Just eat real food. Yeah.
Number one. Stop eating like a child.
Well, how do they say that? Just eat what's in don't eat on the outside of the store. Eat what's in the center of the store, right?
Well, seriously. There's just those principles that are easy to follow, and then you can individualize it based off your own body and how you feel, and using blood work and continuous glucose monitors, things like that.
Well, my diet's gotten pretty dramatic, so let's kind of talk about that. that. And
Yeah.
I'm going to break down what I think was probably the best information that I could give somebody with nutrition, which we kind of talked about. So I did a standard bodybuilding diet I'm 37 now. I was 32 when I stopped, and since my teenage years the whole way through, I was trying to get bigger. So carbohydrates and insulin, you need it to grow. You need to have carbohydrates. You're not going to.
Especially for strength training.
Yeah, like even now, like what I do, I have to have carbs. Also, if I go too many days without it, I just feel like I can't even get a pump. Like I can't, even if my sodium's high, right? But so I came to Dr. Khan 5 years ago. I was leaving bodybuilding. I was in my 260s. My blood pressure was up. And obviously using performance enhancements, and I wanted to get away from that. It all started in Hawaii. I went to Maui, Hawaii, and I had tendonitis in both knees, had arthritis in my shoulders, and my health was starting to fade on me. And I was 32 years old, and I said, I want to live a long, happy health. I was sitting on the beach, and have you ever been to Hawaii?
No.
You got to go, bro. Yeah. It's life changing. It's changed me since I was there. My feet were in the water, and I fast forwarded to like when I was 50, and what was bodybuilding going to get me? And I pictured I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to have a family. I wanted to be wealthy. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to take salsa lessons, learn other languages, learn instruments. And I was like, this doesn't align with what I'm doing. So I had to realign myself. And I decided right there on the beach, I was going to change, right? And not long after, I got to meet you. Yeah. And I decided, hey, I just want to stop all this stuff. And we've done it. And I've been lucky enough. We've put me through all the tests, like hard ultrasounds and calcium score tests, which I scored really great on, stress tests, and my cholesterol has been great. My blood pressure is great. My blood work comes back, everything as healthy as I could be. Yeah. My exercise level, they told when I did the stress test, they said that my exercise output was really, really good. But I started last October, I started having these spells where I would eat my breakfast, and I was eating somewhat the vertical diet, right? I was kind of eating Stan Effernan style diet, like quick digesting carbs. And I would eat in the morning, and then 2 or 3 hours later, I'd start having these hypo spells where my blood sugar would crash, and I'd have to start eating a ton of fruit. I'd eating fructose and drinking shakes and orange juice to try to bring it back up. And this was happening all the time. And looking back now, I think it was stress, because I was opening a gym in a pandemic, a multi-million-dollar facility that my bills are $150,000 a month. And I was trying to you know what I mean? Like on the verge of just losing everything. And I think that had a lot to do with the cortisol and the stress of where it was at. So I contacted Stan and had some meetings with him. And then he told me you should do, what was the test that we did?
We did fructosamine.
Fructosamine.
Yeah.
And I went, so I can't remember what it was. I tested my blood sugar that morning, and it was a 4, which I always wake up around a 4 to a 4.2, even when I'm doing keto. And I went in, and they gave me 75 grams of sugar, and then they sent me out to my car, or I guess whatever, I waited 2 hours, and they came in. Right. I don't know what the number came back, but what I got back in my car after they tested the second time, and the house was 10 minutes away. I was driving home, and I was starting to see spots. I got home, I was a 3.2.
Right, yeah, that's crazy.
Right,
yeah.
remember me saying
that was the oral glucose tolerance test.
Yeah. So I started drinking orange juice and chugging honey and whatever to get it back up. And so I decided at that point, I spoke to a couple other friends, and we realized that maybe over the years of bodybuilding, eating such high carbohydrates, that my pancreas had produced a lot more beta cells and aggressive beta cells. And I would eat, say if I had 75 grams of carbs, I think my body was producing enough insulin for 275 grams of carbs, and it was just aggressive, right? So it wasn't that I was insulin resistant, and we kind of came back that it's not like my blood sugar's ever high. So I started doing the keto diet, and I found that that's been very good for me. Yeah. So I do a lot of egg yolks, I do bone marrow, bone broth, I actually roast the bones and scoop the bone marrow out of it. I eat whole eggs every day.
Yeah, I just have to mention, so twice a week I try to eat salmon.
Yeah.
Wild Alaskan salmon. Yeah. And then I try to, once or twice a week, I also try to eat some sort of bone broth.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I've gotten, but this is crazy. So 2 weeks ago, I decided I'm going to start adding in some carbs. Yeah. I seem to do pretty well with spaghetti squash. I seem to do well with sweet potatoes, but black beans, I go hypo. Yeah. White potato, hypo. White rice, I go hypo. So get this. So not last weekend, the weekend before, I said I just want to experiment. So I went and got 2 poke bowls, which have 2 cups of rice in each one. And I had my buddy owns an apple orchard. I had 5 apples. I had a bunch of bananas, and I had a liter of ice cream. So I tested my blood sugar. I was a 4.2. I ate 4 cups of rice, 2 or 3 bananas, a bunch of apples, and a liter of ice cream. Waited 2 hours. I checked. Guess what my blood sugar was? 5.2.
That's crazy.
Right? So then I'm like, okay, let's keep going. So then I want to see what happens. So I waited about another half hour, check it. It's starting to go back down below 5 again. I'm like, oh my God. Then I drank a liter of orange juice, and then I made homemade pizzas. We had 4 or 5 pizzas. I had a big plate of pasta, and then I had some homemade French toast with a bunch of blueberries on it and some Greek yogurt. and I waited 2 hours and I checked it and it was at a 6. So like I'm eating something I should be getting up closer to a 10, and it's just like my body's so efficient, right? So I've realized that even on the keto diet, it's getting better, but I obviously it hasn't gone back to where it was. So what I'm doing now is just on Tuesday night, I either do Kiwan or spaghetti squash, and I'll do like 100 grams of carbs, and I seem to feel fine. I wake up the next day, go back into my keto diet, and I train legs on Wednesday, so I do that Tuesday nights, and I have a wicked leg workout. And then I feel fine the next day. And then Fridays, I do like a little bit of red wine, and I'll do a minimal cheat meal. Usually like last night, I did a little bit of homemade pizza, and I made this homemade French toast. It wasn't a lot of stuff and a bunch of bananas and blueberries, and I woke up today and I feel fine. And I'll probably have a great arm workout. So I found balance, but it's not where I want it to be, you know? So it's an extreme diet, but it's interesting to think like, I don't know, am I superhuman or what's going on?
Well, you actually have the opposite problem, which most people have, right? Most people are leptin and insulin resistant. So they just produce too much. Their body just don't respond to that signal. Yeah. So, but it's awesome how the keto actually helped you. And like, you know, when that book was great, I think for you too. And I think that's the biggest thing I would recommend for everyone is just getting a continuous glucose monitor to figure out what food works for you and what doesn't. Yeah. Because people just like, you can't know otherwise. You're just guessing. Yeah. And then, you know, just having these one size fits all approach doesn't work. No. No, I think that the basics that I took away from Rob Wolf, and shout out to Rob Wolf, it's a great book. If you probably won't see this, but if you ever do, is eat healthy proteins, healthy vegetables, healthy fats, and then whatever fructose and whatever carbohydrates. Because there's like in that book, there's a lot of people that could eat white rice and have no problem with getting like their body doesn't get high blood sugar, and then somebody else could eat oatmeal and get like it's not all carbs are equal to every person, right? And that's the thing that's what's wrong with just like flexible dieting or something is like, you know, that people not every diet's going to be the same for every person. Yeah. You know, so I think that just for people to take away is a simple thing is just eat whole foods, homegrown foods like we did years ago as much as you can, and then just simply fit other stuff in, right? Yeah, and it all comes back to principles. Yeah. So in engineering, they always talk about first principles. Yeah. We can call it fundamentals or whatever you want to call it. But the real principle is it's called evolutionary mismatch. Yeah. So our genes evolve for certain things and our environment doesn't match that. Okay. So we need to match our environment as closely as possible to the genes that we evolved for. Yeah. So what were those genes, right? And so that we were not evolved to sit all day. No. We were evolved to move. We were evolved to be, like you said, it's all the stuff you talked about. Yeah. But that's what it is. It's evolutionary mismatch. That's the most leading theory as to why we have all these chronic diseases now. Yeah. So, and that's what we have to match our environment as closely as possible to our genes in whichever way you can. And that's why I think the environment's so important for behavior, and there's so much research on this too, is for behavior change, right? You're way more likely to eat crap if you keep crap in the house. Of course. Just like simple things like that, right? Yeah, so in just modifying your environment to be closely as matched as you can will give you the most likely to sustain positive behavior change. Yeah, and I would say to anybody that's listening, if you do struggle with diet, you're not alone. Like even the best athletes in the world and the strongest, like mentally strongest people, they suffer with, it's nice to have some red wine, it's nice to have sushi, it's nice to have whatever, right? Like there's nothing wrong with that, but you need major changes. Like it's not your fault that your gut bacteria is off and your blood sugar's off and your cortisol's off and your hormone regulation. And someone's telling you need to lose weight. Yeah. You have all these other hormonal dysregulated pathways. Yeah, everything's against you. Exactly. Yeah. So how are you setting them up for failure? Yeah, I know. So right, when people need more help than just simply like just tracking their macros, and you know that's a good place to start if you don't have any ability to research and stuff. But I think that, you know, don't beat yourself up is what I tell people. Yeah, it's the mindset, right? We always talk about it's not perfectionism, it's consistency. Yeah. Right. And so it's the best way I think about it is it's like a piggy bank. Yeah. Sometimes you put deposits, sometimes you have withdrawals. Yes. And just plan your withdrawals. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So this kind of leads into what I think is probably the most important topic is mental health. Like everybody's talking about it right now, and people aren't well. Like we have some of my pro athletes, top guys, like, oh man, are hurting, right? Especially right now. Like the world was messed up before this, right? Yeah. And we have about 2,200 members now at Athletic Culture. Wow. I've been lucky enough to be networked with the whole community, and I get a lot of people, strong people, reaching out to me, and like people just aren't well right now, right? And I don't know if it's the message. I try to be as transparent as I can, but the truth is I'm suffering too. Like hasn't been an easy year for me, right? But I'm well. Like I meditate, I focus on my goals and the reality of what I'm going through. And I have a beautiful girlfriend. I'm healthy. I have no problems with my friends. Like, you know, there's nothing for me to really
truly, like, I'm healthy. What is there to really worry about? But still, like, just the way stuff is, there's enough that, you know, and so I have a daily rituals and practices that I have to go through to get myself grounded. And that's part of the gym. It's part of my nutrition. It's my affirmations. It's reading books every day. Not everybody has those skill sets and, you know, those good habits, but where do you think that where are we missing? And I know it's not as simple as like just eat better and exercise, but I have so many friends that they'll go to the doctor and they're just like, they'll just put them on a medication, come back in a month, see how you feel, we'll adjust it or we'll take it out, we'll add other stuff in. And that's kind of where, you know, and if you speak about that, people think that you're talking down to them. It's not. I just think that we've gotten so far away from what really matters. Like we're so connected digitally, but we're so disconnected from Mother Earth.
Well, loneliness is a bigger predictor of mortality than smoking.
I think it's number one, right?
Yeah,
it's number one.
So it's bigger than smoking.
Yeah.
So that just goes to show you that we're social creatures.
Yeah.
And there's actually an interesting thing about something called the Rosetta effect, which was like this they studied this group in Italy who used to drink a lot and smoke and do all this poor lifestyle stuff. They lived so long. Yeah. And the reason was because of their social community and the ties that they had to it.
Because they're well.
Yeah, exactly.
Well.
Meaning and belonging, right? Yeah. So at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. And you know, the problem with our current model, again, it's the same with any other chronic condition. Yeah. It's just like, you know, cholesterol or heart disease is not a statin deficiency. Yeah. The same way depression is not a serotonin deficiency. Yeah. So it's a part of it. Yeah. But it's not the whole story. Yeah. So now we know there's neuroinflammation, which is a huge deal, and there's also the gut-brain axis. Yeah. So there's actually three major components, and only one of them is being addressed in the regular healthcare model. Yeah. So if you're not addressing the other two mechanistic pathways in that, how are you going to really help everyone? Certain people do respond great to antidepressants, but a lot of people don't. Yeah. And so what do you do with that other group of people? And plus, you know, if you look at the totality of research on the antidepressants, it's actually not more effective than placebo. Yeah. It's really just a placebo effect, which is fine, but the reality is we need, you know, a more holistic approach, and the most psychiatry is going to be completely changed within this decade because of psychedelics and because of all that research right now. It's really
which is wonderful.
Yeah, so like psilocybin, also ketamine. We're actually doing it at my Pink Clip. We're starting to do ketamine for refractory depression. Okay. So basically, it essentially it helps people, you know, rewire their brain. Essentially, that's what it's doing. Yeah. It's a lot of times it's like. You do that, and then you also have assisted therapy at the same time. Yeah,
it's amazing. I've actually invested in MindMed, which is Kevin O'Leary's the head investor in that. I've kind of self-prescribed myself with psilocybin a few times. And
well, microdosing with that stuff, I think, is where
it's phenomenal.
You know, it's a shame we can't prescribe it yet, but like if I could, I would. You know, a lot of my depressed patients, that would be my go-to now. It's so much better.
It's honestly the few times that I've used it, it's been the most healing and traumatic experience of my life of letting out like stuff that I didn't even know was in there.
Well, that people have so much repressed emotional trauma. Yeah. And that's actually the root of most addiction, including food addiction. Yeah. Right? And so people just never address that stuff, and then they use other ways to cope with it. Yeah. And so if you don't get to the root of it, which an antidepressant is not going to get to the root of it, of course, then how are you ever going to get better?
Right. Yeah. So we are hopeful. You are hopeful.
Oh yeah. It's completely changing. I know a lot of people are struggling with mental health, but you know, if you can get that type of stuff, that would be my recommendation. If you have access to it. In Colorado, it's legalized now, but other states will follow. I'm sure Canada will follow eventually too. Yeah. There's a lot of trials being done on it, so I think that's really where psychiatry is headed. Yeah. But making sure you do a holistic approach to mental health, right? Yeah. So make sure you target the neuroinflammation and the brain axis as well. Yeah. In addition to the serotonin and dopamine stuff.
One of the things you said that was super interesting, and I truly believe this with all my heart, is you talked about people in Italy that smoked, drank, had a great community, and they were happy. Like, I think the number one thing is people just aren't well. Like you could be depressed and you have a child, right? And I bet you the day your child was born, your energy was through the roof. You were vibrating at a level. Yeah. Whether you do public speaking, financial goals you've hit. You just bought a new home, I believe, right? Like you're building a new home, and on the water, I think it was, right? So amazing. And things like I always say to people, you know, like you could be down and depressed, and if you won the lotto and you just found out you won 50 million, it wouldn't last forever, but your state changes, and and I think that's where people need to get back to, like, having goals and playing instruments and having a future and a meaningfulness and chasing something down. And I think a big part of what it is people just aren't well. Like, they're not focused on happiness. They're not trying to be happy. They're stuck in bad relationships, bad food, whatever. And I think we always think it's just science or a hormone or a chemical or something that's off that we can fix. But a lot of it is just our mind, like just our mindset. I think it's one of the pillars that is being missed, right?
Yeah, for sure. And that's where I think, you need a good therapist.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think almost everyone could benefit from a good therapist.
Yeah.
It's like having a coach for your life.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
you have even like I treat some of the top athletes in the world,
Yeah.
like a gold medalist or whatever.
Yeah.
And they have coaches for a reason.
Yeah.
Why don't you have a coach for your own health, mental health or mind, right?
Yeah.
So
right.
to me, it's almost, we're not taught this, but that's a fundamental pillar I think everyone needs.
Yeah, 100%. And then I think that, good exercise, good nutrition, and then some of those practices where you can start, because not everybody can afford a therapist, right? But like, I think it's an investment at some point you should probably participate in. But that's what's beautiful about social media and YouTube.
Exactly, yeah.
Is there's someone like this, hopefully someone watches this podcast and gets something out of it. But there's so many wonderful people like they're putting out, like Dr. Joe Dispenza, or you watch Aubrey Marcus's podcast or Joe Rogan's podcast. And there's so many different people out there that are putting the impact theory. Like you can go watch these podcasts and get access to people for free, that it kind of is like having a therapist and may change your mindset.
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
So I encourage people, like, get out there and start researching that stuff if you're not well.
Well, it's all about controlling what information comes into your phone, right?
Yeah.
Because that's where everyone is nowadays. It's on their phone. And people a lot of times have the wrong information because they have the wrong outlets and they're consuming the wrong information. The algorithms know what you want. So if you train the algorithm to consume like that's not helpful information, then that's what you're gonna get. Right?
Yeah.
So I think that's really important.
Yeah. But you can tell when I'm dieting too, because like my algorithm shows all the cheat meals. I've got this obsession with Turkish food, which I've never really had. But I go on whenever I'm dieting. I'll if I go onto my Explore feed, and it's like pistachio, baklava, all these different things, and it's like I'm like, okay, you can the algorithm knows what I'm focused on right now.
Actually, I went to Turkey a few years ago. I had the best baklava.
Is it? Yeah. Well,
it's like the whole birthplace of baklava.
It is, yeah, and hair transplant. So I seen you post something about this the other day.
Oh yeah,
I've lost my hair. And I want it back.
Where I'm working, I'm just doing this like on the side. I don't do the hair transplants.
Yeah.
I do the injection part, which is just because I'm an injection specialist. That's what I do. So I just literally do the freezing, and then the tech does the harvesting and the grafting.
Okay.
But she's a tech who used to work with this really good plastic surgeon, so she's amazing at it.
Yeah.
She actually did my brother's and one of my other brother-in-laws, and essentially it's called follicular unit extraction. So you just take one hair follicle at a time and implant it individually. So it's not so you can go to work the next day. Like I said, it's a minor surgery, and like it's just honestly for a lot of people I think it's just a financial thing, but it's most people are willing to pay for it because going bald sucks for your self-esteem and
you know what,
I
actually look pretty good with a shaved head, but I want to change. I want to change it up once in a while though. Like I want to grow, like I don't know, like I want to experience what it's like to have gray hair too. Like I don't know. So like I've Noah from HD. He went to Hair Time, and there's a bunch of other celebrity type people, influencers that I follow that's gone to the same place in Turkey. I don't know. I think it's 20 to 40,000 depending on how many obviously injections.
You don't need that. I don't know if the Turkey's usually cheaper. That's why people go there.
Yeah.
But this late, they charge $3 per graft, and most procedures you need 2,000 to 3,000 grafts.
Yeah.
So you're looking at 69,000.
Yeah. So I'm going to probably need 100,000. I need lots of grafts.
We do one at a time.
Right.
One at a time.
So So let's talk about that. This is in Toronto?
Yeah.
So I don't have to go to Turkey.
No.
Do you think I can get? You can't
get a full. You should get full head of hair.
Maybe a mohawk,
three hair transplants, 2 or 3.
So
you do one section at a time.
So that they just do a little bit of that.
Because you only do a couple thousand at a time, just because you can only harvest from the back.
Okay.
Because this hair in the back is what's called DHT resistant.
Yes.
DHT is a hormone that causes you to go bald, miniaturization of the hair follicles.
Yeah.
And so this hair is resistant to that, so you can implant it, and you'll never lose that hair again.
Well, when we did my first blood panel, my DHT was through the roof.
Yeah, a lot of guys who take
now it's normal.
Testosterone and stuff.
If I had taken finasteride or something way back, I probably would have been fine, right? Yeah. But I still have we could call them sprouts maybe or something like that. They're not, but there's a little bit there, right? So I think it's still hopeful. I'm thinking it's possible.
Yeah.
I could get it back.
You could do one section. You could get some hair if you want. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking maybe just a little. My girlfriend likes it, right? So I'm thinking maybe I'll grow a little bit back. So if it's 20K, I can do it. 69,000, I might need another year.
No, 6 to 9,000.
Oh, that's not too bad. 6 to 9,000. I might be able to see you in the new year.
Yeah.
So maybe you can make the introduction.
Yeah. I can.
Yeah. Sure. So I'm interested in doing that. So let's jump in. That's enough of the humor of my bald head, but. Let's jump into exercise and weightlifting.
Yeah.
Because that's all part. A lot of people think that, there's always a thing of a car engine can only run so long, your heart only has so many beats. And I think that obviously if you're doing triathlons and marathons and 20 rep sets of squats until your nose bleeds, it's not healthy, but weightlifting is healthy.
Yes, right? Done correctly. And that's why, but it's a technical thing. So that's why I think, again, everyone needs a trainer at some point in their life to educate them on how to do
agree.
it. It's not like something you just go to show up and just do it on your own.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't, to me, it just doesn't make sense to do it that way.
Yeah.
And it's not like, maybe in the 80s it made sense because we didn't know that much. And, you know, but now exercise science has come such a long way.
Yeah.
There's so much in terms of periodization, progressions, regressions.
Yeah.
Mobility, all that, injury prevention, like all that stuff has to be built into a good program.
100%.
And you need to, even if you have just a consultation or a few sessions with a trainer, I think everyone needs to invest in a good trainer.
Yeah.
And that's why we created Exalt, is to elevate the standard of training.
Yeah.
It should be like a regulated health profession. And in fact, in Australia it is.
Yeah.
Like, you know, but in Canada, US, we're still behind, but it should be like a physio or like a chiro, right?
Yeah.
And so you're prescribing exercise.
Yeah.
And so it's just coming back to the same principles, right? So evolutionary mismatch and cellular signaling. Like those are the two things that exercise is really doing for you, right?
Well, even weightlifting is like, we're tying this to brain health now, right? Like, it's not just like bone density.
Oh yeah, no. It's
muscle mass.
You get release of myokines. So we were talking about cytokines earlier. So there's lots of kines in our body. There's also adipokines, which are released from your fat, which are pro-inflammatory. So it's all about cellular signaling.
Yeah.
You'll hear me say that word so many times, but that's a huge thing, because now that's where medicine's headed.
Okay.
If we can turn off certain signals, we can even cure cancer. Wow. And that's what there's something called immunotherapy, where they target IL-2, which is a certain thing in certain cancers, and they can put out that signal, and then you can actually cure the cancer. Like this is where medicine is headed. Yeah. It's all about cellular pathways and signaling and specific targeted therapies.
Okay.
And so exercise is the best therapy for your body, especially weight training, because the myokines that get released from your body are anti-cancerous. They help prevent diabetes. Yeah. And brain health, and there's so many benefits, not just like musculoskeletal. So we're talking like, you know, actual like general health and like not just because people conventionally think, it's muscles just to look good or whatever. Yeah. But it's not just for movement and strength. It's for your whole body. Yeah. So because of the myokines and the cellular signaling that it does, it helps with every facet of it, like cardiovascular disease, neurological diseases, respiratory disease, everything, right? So,
something very interesting there, like with. You probably couldn't put a number on it, and when people talk about cancer, people get freaked out because they're like, not just about having cancer, but like there's always this, you know, well, that you can't say that about that doesn't recover cancer, that doesn't heal cancer. But the majority of the stuff that people are suffering from is just lifestyle, right? Like that's the majority.
Well, there's a huge massive,
genetically some, but I mean,
there's a massive can't remember exactly how many patients, but it's in hundreds of thousands epidemiological study, and it's 80% of chronic diseases can be prevented through lifestyle. That's what the authors concluded. Yeah. So that's a majority of chronic diseases. And that's includes cancer, heart disease, like the big killers, right? Yeah. That's what's such a. I'm not even going to talk about what's going on in the world right now, because that's not the topic that. I mean, we get censored for even talking about it, but. Like that's what's such a shame with what's happening right now. Yeah, because our biggest problem. Ironic. It's ironic. You want people to be healthier, but then all the stuff that they're doing is just.
It's not. Yeah, it's like a complete opposite message of what. And then the people that have spent like. Well, you've known me for 5 years. You know how proactive I am. Yeah. Like I basically, my whole life is based on how can I relieve the Medicare system. Yeah, I go for my checkups and whatever, but like I do everything I can to be as healthy as I can and preventative wise. And like, I'm not rewarded for that at all. Yeah. It's almost like frowned upon, almost like it's like, like I'm trying everything I can to not just for myself. It's also like to lead by example, inspire other people. And to also like all the stuff that I'm doing with my diet and stuff is so I can provide information. Even this podcast, it's great to grow a following and speak to interesting people, but it's my hopes that my mom or dad will watch this, or my brother, and whoever friend will get some good information from it, right? So I mean, that's what's a shame, is the message, and it's out there. It's not even talked about.
Yeah, no, it's not. I've insisted on talking, maybe going on the news to talk about it, but we'll see.
Right. Well, the problem is
the media. They don't. They have their narrative and the message, and they just want to go with it. Right?
Well, they've tried to interview us at Athletic Culture a bunch of times this year for different things, and I just said no, because like I'll say whatever I try to say, and they'll cut it up to say make it sound however, and I was like, that's not what I meant, So then you just get canceled, and it's not even worth doing, right? Which is a shame, because it's all coming from a good place of like all this information. You had good intentions, and speaking of good intentions, I think that's all that really matters in life, right? Like if you're a doctor or whatever it is, even if you make a mistake, it's like I had good intentions.
Yeah, exactly.
You know. So would you say if somebody that's looking for longevity and wants to build a nice body and live a long life and be healthy, what 2, 3, 4 days of weightlifting, a little bit of cardiovascular, some stretching, mobility kind of mixed in there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing where it's so individualized, but like generally speaking, I think to get a progressive strength training program, you need to do at least 3 days a week. Yeah. to make progress, meaning.
Yeah.
So I think for maintenance, you can do 2 days a week, but 3 days I would say is a minimum effective dose.
Yeah.
And then cardiovascular, you can, depending on your schedule, like you can do either low intensity, steady state type of thing, just for recovery, or you could do high intensity interval. I think it depends on, obviously age, so many factors, how you train and stuff.
Yeah.
I personally find I just do low intensity, steady state because for me it's more active recovery and meditative almost in a sense. I go for walks or whatever, and hiking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But some people, they don't get enough out of their regular training, so they need to add in more high intensity cardio.
Yeah.
But like, when I'm doing if you're doing a sweat of heavy squat, doing, 400 pound or 300 pound squats versus doing 135 is completely different.
Yeah.
Like you cannot compare it.
Yeah.
So it's the metabolic stress on your body and the way it activates your body is completely different.
Yeah.
So, when you're doing that type of weight and you're doing heavy lifting, personally, I never found the need to add additional cardio.
No, like
you're going to get the cardiovascular benefit from that.
Yeah.
Too, especially with higher reps.
No, 100, like I've done the crazy experience. I've had many leg days with Ben Pikowski. Like he's put me through, like, I'm pretty sure I was vomiting blood and I did have blood in my nose, like crazy workouts. But like my crazy experience is 315 for 30 reps.
Oh my God.
And I'm talking like you check your heart rate after that, it's like in the 180s, right? Jesus, and like your blood pressure is ready to like your circulatory system just expanded like this. Like that's intense. Like you can't get that same experience on an assault bike. Like it's just, it's not, and that's not healthy. I'm not recommending to do that for your health. But I'm just saying, if you do even body weight squats for sets of 20, the metabolic rate that you're going to get out of doing a deadlift or a squat is way greater than even an assault bike or something. But I find that I do feel better when I do cardio because it is meditative.
Yeah, exactly.
And with my blood sugar issues that I have, HIIT cardio doesn't seem, I find steady state, I just feel better.
Yeah.
Like I just,
And sarcopenia is like basically muscle loss as you age. Most people have heard of osteoporosis and osteopenia. That's low bone density. But sarcopenia is actually the epidemic now.
Okay.
And so that's why resistance training is so important. It's not like an optional thing anymore.
Yeah.
It's like we know this is an important part of your health. You need to do it.
Yeah.
And you need to learn. You don't know how, learn.
Like you couldn't survive without it in the real, like you'd have to swim, you have to carry your food.
Yeah, exactly. The functional decline, if you're from like 70 to 90, with muscle versus without, is like, there's curves with that, right? Like it goes like this versus like gradual. Yeah. Right? So. And
so to finish all this off, I want to live to 100. Right now, my mom always says, my uncle used to say, I want to live to 100. He died at 27. She always says, don't say that. But I want to live to 100. And now I'm on a road to trying to exercise that, like, let's talk about telomeres and things like this. Like there's ways to measure how fast you're aging, right?
Yeah.
Like, they can actually a precursor to like how long you're going to live. There's some people doing some amazing work, but some of them are a little bit quacky too. Like some of the stuff they're testing on mice and whatever. And
a lot of it's like the proxy measures.
Yeah.
And so, telomere length, for example, like it's a proxy measure. We don't know if it doesn't 100% correlate with your health, like longevity.
It doesn't. Okay. Yeah. So you're a medical guy, you're a numbers guy, you're a science guy, but do you think, is there a practice that I could be involved in now outside of what you know that I do that would, something that I could, like I do the sun every day, I try to ground every day, I have a $10,000 water filtration system at my house. I measure my sodium, I measure my food, I check my blood sugar, I'm exercising, I'm doing mobility.
Sounds like I think the only thing maybe would be adding some sort of sulforaphane in your diet, which you talked about, so maybe broccoli sprouts, because it's high nutrient dense and anti-cancerous.
Okay.
And then the other thing some people don't think about is air pollutants and toxins. So our environment is very toxic now. And for example, in India, it's not a problem here, but in India, there was a study showing that 1 in 4 people's heart disease and stuff is due to air pollutants.
Wow.
Because the air is so polluted. Here it's not that bad, but it is not that good either.
It's not that good, especially Toronto. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And and the same thing with indoor air pollutants.
Yeah.
Like so that's why having like those plants that detoxify the air is good to have in your house as well.
Very cool.
So there's a list of them. If you Google NASA plants detoxification, there's a list of NASA, because NASA uses them on the air. And they detoxify the air.
Okay.
So I have a few of those in my house, and they're good for detoxification. So,
okay, cool.
Or cleaning the air.
Yeah. So I'm pretty much on the right track. I just need to get some better air and some broccoli sprouts, and I'm ready to go. Right.
Lift to 100.
Let's talk about HG. You got the shirt on?
Oh, yeah.
So, like, I know the last show that Dorian did was the same last show that I did.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we got some pictures together, but neither one of us looked that great, so we don't share. We were a little bit bloated and watery in that show. But Dorian just did a show again, but he's gone. They're super guys. They're super nice people. They're awesome. He's surrounded himself by amazing athletes. And you're part of designing some of the
I'm
liver,
on the science,
sleep aid.
Yeah, I'm on the science side of things.
Yeah.
So basically helping formulation of the health series.
Yeah.
So I help to make the liver, the multivitamin, the kidney, and the sleep.
Yeah.
Which, obviously, I never endorse products because I don't think I don't want to, because I think that's weird for a doctor to do. I always just tell people, just look at our ingredients, you can compare them to other ones, and just compare for yourself. And like you'll see our ingredient list is superior to any other one on the market. Yeah. In terms of sourcing, but also in terms of third-party validation. Okay. So we use a third party to validate our manufacturer's ingredients. Yeah. Because a lot of times manufacturers cheat you out. They stop putting in what they're actually supposed to put because they're just saving money. So like
100%.
And like there's no regulation. It's not like pharmaceuticals, right?
Yeah.
All the pharmaceutical companies do that too sometimes. But we want to keep a high standard. Yeah. And Dorian, the reason I chose to work with him too was because he always said he wants to have the highest standard possible, and that's the same vision I always want. My dream was always to make my own supplements one day. Like that's why I always told everyone that I'm going to do it one day, and it just ended up being a perfect opportunity. And
of course,
he also got Jordan Shallows, and me and Jordan obviously he's a chiro and I'm a medical doctor, so we gel a lot together. So it's definitely a cool team to be part of, and it's
the
exciting.
Products are amazing.
Yeah, I'm really proud of what we've done, and we're working on a few other. We have a hydration. We're going to have a women's health one, a cardiac health one. So we have a few other ones in the pipeline. That we're going to make as well. So
what's interesting with Dorian's product is it's marketed like, well, first of all, HD means heavy D, and it's like a holistic product. Yeah. But it's marketed to minus the pre-workouts and stuff like that. Yeah. But if you look at the vitamins, the multivitamin, I don't think you could get a better one than what's in there. It's insane. Like you have to look. That's why it's $140 or $120.
We're premium, but that's our
super
market.
premium.
Yeah.
The protein, all from grass-fed, grass-finished cows. It's high quality stuff. The pre-workouts, like the sleep aid, all the stuff that he has on the line is almost like something you'd see at Goodness Me or Planet Health or something like that. But it's like a bodybuilding kind of centric product, right? Yeah. But I think that's what's missing with the bodybuilding industry.
Exactly. Well, yeah. And our plans, obviously, the liver and kidney is for guys who take anabolic steroids. But our plans to scale into the nutraceutical market within regular people because there's such a paucity of actual quality supplements. Yeah. Most people get their omega-3 or multivitamin from like Costco or Walmart. Yeah. Like they're literally useless. Yeah. So, no, they are. Yeah. You're just especially like the hard. That's why I don't recommend multivitamins to most people. Like, there's no point. They're just garbage. Like you're just wasting your money.
Well, you see the videos where people put them in apple cider vinegar. They'll hit it with a hammer, put it in apple cider vinegar, and stir it. It's still just like it doesn't even break down, right? Like it's
like what you're consuming.
Yeah. You're never going to consume it. Yeah. Like I would say 95% of supplements are not even worth taking. Usually they say, what supplement should I take? Well, which one are you deficient in, right? Exactly. Like if you're low in vitamin D, most people need vitamin D. Yeah. Even some whole food vitamin C, some people need, and then like an omega-3. But most of the time, you don't even need a protein shake unless you can't eat enough protein. Exactly. That's what it's for, right? Yeah. But a multivitamin these days is good, like you said, because our agriculture it's so stripped. Exactly. The ground is so stripped.
Yeah, and unless you eat like organ meat like you all the time, bone broth, you're not going to get enough nutrients for your diet.
Once a week oysters, a couple times a week have some liver and some bone broth, and some whole eggs. The whole eggs, and you're good.
I don't eat like that, so that's why I think multivitamin.
But I'm going to bring you some ground.
That's true.
You'll like it.
Yeah,
you just make hamburgers with it, or add it to your rice, or whatever you're doing, and you wouldn't even know. It's got a bit more of a mineral taste to it than just regular beef, but it's a good way to get in some organ meats. Yeah. And it's from like when you go to the farm, like it's mom and pa that it's going to get, right? Cool, yeah. Like the chickens they're not very big. Like the chicken is great. They have their own bison, their own elk, and they're doing great things. And you can get like beef tallow, and you can get ghee from them, and they have liver, spleen, heart, tongue, like they. Yeah. Do you follow Liver King? Have you ever seen this guy? He owns Ancestral Health Supplements. Have you ever heard of them? Yeah. Where they do like decimated beef liver supplements, like it's fraud. Right. Have you? I'm going to send you this guy's page. This guy, you should see his daily diet. Like everything's raw.
Oh man.
Like it's crazy. Like eight raw eggs a day. He eats raw bull testicle, which is the grossest thing ever, and raw liver every day, and raw bone marrow. And like his whole diet's like just heart, spleen, and he's insanely jacked, and he can't be natural. He can't be because he's insane. And he does like the sunning and the meditation, and he lives the lifestyle in Texas of whatever. But I'm gonna send you the guy's page because it's like next, like he's 1% of the type. Not too many people could live like that.
Yeah, I don't know why there's this misconception that people think raw is better. Yeah, that's not true. Again, we have science behind this. For example, when you cook tomatoes, you release a chemical in there. Carrots,
a lot of stuff.
That actually makes it more nutrient
increases it.
So it's not. It's about and same with garlic, the allicin, which is the ingredient in there. So So it depends. You can't just say raw is better.
Yeah,
so
no,
I don't know where that concept came from,
I
but
don't know.
for some reason that community keeps pushing it.
But a medium rare steak is a lot better than well done. I'll say that, right? So, okay, 2 more things I want to talk about. Red meat, I eat it every day, but it's grass fed, grass finished.
Well,
How do you feel about
this
that?
is where there's a huge debate about it, but generally speaking, I think it comes down to the other components of your diet. So if you're eating red meat, but you're still consuming like adequate amount of like antioxidants and whatnot, I think you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
It's just people who eat, all this red meat, but aren't doing anything to kind of like, let's say, sponge some of the pro-cancerous chemicals possibly in there.
Yeah.
But that's more with processed meat anyway.
I think so.
All the studies that have been done on it are like processed red meat.
Yeah.
I think if you're getting grass-fed, grass-finished meat, it's hard to say because there isn't probably enough research on it yet, but like mechanistically, it doesn't make sense for that to be nearly as dangerous as things. So, as processed red meat. So whenever a doctor says, oh, you should reduce your red meat intake, they're going based off the old outdated studies, not based off the new science. Yeah. So to me, it's perfectly safe. And if you eat it every day and your body, and like we said, your blood work has been great and there's no issues, why would you not, why would I recommend against it? Yeah. Well, the only thing we haven't gotten back was the cholesterol test that we did, which was there's two types of LDL, right? What's the difference between the 2 types of LDL? Well, there's fractionated LDL. So there's basically what's called the big fluffy LDL, which is not as arthrogenic or doesn't cause as much heart disease. And then there's what's called the small dense LDL particles. Okay. Those small dense ones are the ones that tend to cause more arthrogenic and heart disease and whatnot. Because a lot of people think that saturated fats. Yeah, it's such a misconception. But it's more like scarring of the sugar or scarring of the arteries that cause a lot of... Sugar is by far the biggest issue in processed refined carbohydrates. Not whole eggs, not grass-fed butter, not red meat, right? It's more inflammation than anything, right? And so maybe if those foods cause you inflammation and cause issues, modify your diet. Yeah. So yes, if you try keto for 2 months and your LDL goes like to 8, then fine. You need to modify it. Yeah. But it's individual. Right? Yeah. There's very few people that would have that problem, but there is people. Keto's not good for them. Exactly. Yeah. They need to eat more fish. And we know why. There's something called SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphisms. Mm-hmm. So people have polymorphisms in their genes. And that codes for certain people to have increased LDL with keto diet and some people not. Yeah. So that's where nutrigenomics and this type of science is now headed in terms of figuring out what works for some people and doesn't work. Yeah. It's still in its infancy though. Yeah. But yeah. So so I'm going to continue to eat red meat every day because I absolutely love it. I feel better on it. Exactly. And my blood work has come back great. And so speaking on calcium, that's what a lot of people, I think the misconception is with heart health, right? Is like their calcium. A lot of people could be like on a vegetarian diet, but their calcium scores through the roof. Yeah. Because they're eating calcified vegetables, they're getting it in their water, and they're lacking K2 and vitamin D3. Yeah, exactly. Whatever other minerals, and they're getting calcium buildup. Yeah. And they're having heart disease, but yet they don't even eat saturated fat. Yeah. Right? So that's like a huge problem that a lot of people, and my calcium score was, I can't remember what it was. It was a 0. Yeah, it was a 0, right? It was actually perfect. Like, it's funny because when I came to you, I told you I'm a bit of a spiritual person. And obviously I said like I've used psychedelics and different things. And I've always had this message of like, take care of your heart, right? And I've always felt that way. Yeah. But everything that we've done has come back that my heart's fine. Yeah, exactly. So maybe it was just anxiety and stress. Well, it's a lot of people. Yeah, right. But stress does definitely put a load on your heart. But at least it hasn't for you. Yeah. So my last question, you're a technical guy in a way, a scientific guy. Are you into cryptocurrency at all? Yeah. Unfortunately. I've become obsessed with it. Yeah, no, it's probably the biggest opportunity for our generation and for solving economic inequality, which is the biggest issue. And I think crypto has potentially the chance to do that. Yeah. So that's why I think a lot of like Chile just approved it for use in terms of that, and China banned it, but that's just nonsense. That's like the 18th time. Yeah, exactly. It just makes headlines just for fun. Invest more. No, seriously, I can tell you his name, but he's one of the top tennis players in the world. Mm-hmm. And I was treating him a few weeks ago, and he knows some of the big boys, like billionaire boys, they're all into crypto now. Like they're all putting their money into it, and it's not fair though because the SEC doesn't regulate crypto, so they allow them to do insider trading with crypto. Yeah, so they know exactly what to do. Everything that's going on right now is what they call whales, right? Yeah, and it's like they're manipulating the market to get everybody scared so they can buy it at lower. Because you can't transfer $400 million
like that. They have to do it in small amounts. It's not safe. You could have your crypto stolen. That's what people don't understand. Like, you could be a billionaire and you're like, I want to buy $100 million in crypto. You can't just buy $100 million in crypto. Like, it takes time.
Exactly.
You got to send transfers and bank wires and get it approved, right? So it's like, I mean, I have Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, Polkadot, Avalanche, Solana. I'm into Audius. There's a bunch of different ones. What I'm excited about the NFT market and the DeFi technology overall, but the smart contracts too. Like,
that's why I like Ethereum. That's the biggest holding I have.
Ethereum's great minus the gas fees and stuff that's with it, but the network itself.
But
and
Ethereum 2.0 I think will help.
I'm excited to see that come out, right?
Yeah.
So have you been staking your Ethereum at all, or are you kind of just holding? Are you cold storing it?
No, I'm just holding it.
You're just holding it? Yeah. So I'm super excited about it because especially with the blockchain technology, right? When you look at, like, I'm thinking eventually that we may be able to do something with Medicare system with it too.
Yeah.
Because you could have all your medical records on there. Birth certificates are going to be on there. Marriage license, land plots, your medical license would be on there, right? But also your health records and stuff like that.
That's what people don't understand is blockchain technology is just in its infancy. And in 10 years, you're going to be like, oh, why didn't I buy crypto?
I know. Yeah.
It's like buying real estate in the 1990s in Toronto.
100%.
Like, you'd be dumb for not doing it, right?
100%.
So it's the same with crypto right now. It's in the beginning stages.
Yeah.
And, it's, I think you can't go wrong with some of the fundamental blockchains.
I think what people are misunderstood is everybody thinks it's just a currency.
Yeah.
That's where people are like, okay, like, I'm going to buy Bitcoin and I'm just yes, there is that.
Yeah.
Bitcoin's a store of value.
Yeah, that's different.
It's really a store. It's like gold, right? It's like digital gold, but it's, I think overall, if people understood like with NFTs and then with music, blockchain music, like this one Audius, have you heard of Audius?
No.
I bought Audius. Have you heard Audius? Yeah. So like I'm in Audius. There's a lot of like music artists that are invested in it, but it's like Spotify. So if you make music, you can put it on there. I can buy it for my ringtone eventually. I can put it on Instagram and you get the royalties for life, right? So like there's things that's what people don't understand about the blockchain. I mean.
People don't understand the practical applications of them, and there's so many cool ones that are coming out, and it's really going to change the world.
Like when you and I are super famous, and some of those pictures that he took today, and those become an NFT, he's going to get so he's going to be rich down the road, right?
Exactly. No, it's so cool. I think the biggest thing is, as your podcast is a lot about health and happiness and stuff, the reality is financial inequality is one of the biggest drivers for people to have stress, and you can't solve that. Like, I can't solve that as a doctor, obviously, but at the same time, that's why I like to educate myself on it, and you should educate people, and people should become educated on it, because that's the only way to really free yourself and or else you're just, a lot of people just go through life just working and 100% and whatever.
100%. And that's what this podcast, like, my main background was health. And I think that's the foundation to a great life. But I'm obsessed with finances and freedom too. To be able to do whatever you want.
I can talk a little bit about it, but like the reason I'm able to build a house on the lake and I'm financially independent at age 32 was because I invested in Tesla in 2016. I'm most doctors have no understanding of investing. And especially at that age, to be financially independent is like sweet. But like the reason was because I educated myself. And I was like, I don't want to be a slave my whole life. No. So now I can choose what I do with my time, and I can focus on. And the reason I work, you're probably like, oh, why do you still work? Because I love being a doctor. As you can tell, I enjoy the stuff, and I'm a nerd. And so I just do the stuff because I enjoy it, not because I have to.
And that's amazing. That's a really good thing. And like, to finalize it, the podcast is about health, it's about fitness, but I also want to have politicians on. I want people to understand what a liberal is and what a conservative is, what an NDP is. I want them to understand how the Medicare system works. I want to learn more about cryptocurrency, about investing, about how economics work and what inflation is, and how the banks create inflation and how they jack up interest rates and drop interest rates, and then a little bit about health, because that's where wellness is at. I want people to be more well. I want people to have all that stuff, because if you're financially free and you can help your mom at any point in time, and you can travel anywhere and be completely free and be healthy and be mindful, and then also have a sense of meaningness in the community and helping other people, I think that's why I'm doing this podcast. And I adore speaking to intelligent people that have their, that are experts in their own field or doing other things, and that's why I'm doing it. And I'm hoping I can grow it to something really, really big. Sure. So we're gonna go train some arms now, right? So you got a high carb day today?
A little bit.
Are we doing high reps or what are we doing?
I'll follow your lead. You're the ex-bodybuilder.
I know. So we're going to catch a huge pump.
I'm just a doctor.
Thank you so much. It was great for having you on. Hopefully everybody got something out of it, and we'll still be coming out next week. So thank you so much, and thank you for tuning in, guys.